Three, two, one. Yeah. Okay.
Go, man.
Okay.
Thank you for joining with the podcast. So, with us today we have Velu. He's from India, and my name is Raktim. I'm also from India. So, we would like to discuss about the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient scriptures. It's a scripture about the spirituality, and it is a very relevant scripture in today's world of suffering and how to get out of the suffering. So, without okay, first let us discuss about your background first. So, can you please little bit introduce yourself to the audience? Then we can start discussing about the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Raktim, for this discussion, first of all. And yeah, like you said, my name is Velu. I'm from Tamil Nadu, India. And I'm a researcher, PhD researcher here in Italy, where I met Raktim, and we had found our mutual interest in spirituality. So we are
That
here.
sounds interesting. Yeah, good. Tell.
It's
done?
This is all about me.
Okay. So, before going into the chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, so I would like to understand, buddy, a little bit of background of the Bhagavad Gita. Means where from it came and why it is necessary in today's world. Because as you can see, if we sample 10 or 15 random people or 100 random people, 90% of them they are very, very mentally frustrated. And I see a lot of mental suffering in today's date. So what I really feel is that this kind of ancient scriptures is a kind of timeless actually, because it directly tells you about the truth or something like that. And the verses is very, very relevant in today's date. So if we
Yeah.
can't ponder upon the verses, if we can investigate upon the verses, and a lot of things about that we can get out of the suffering and eventually lead to liberation or moksha or something like that. So okay, before going into this particular zone, so I would like to understand from you the background of the Bhagavad Gita. So
Okay.
would you enlighten us about it?
Yeah, sure. So before we start discussing, I would like to offer my love and respect to my mother, my father,
That's really nice.
and my gurus, and the ultimate reality, who is also called as the God. So Bhagavad Gita is one of the very important scriptures coming from India, and the word Bhagavad Gita literally means the song of the beloved.
Okay, that's nice.
So
yeah.
Gita is like the song, and Bhagavad, it comes from the beloved. It directly comes from the God, who is Lord Krishna here,
Yeah.
and it happens within the context of the Great War of India, which is called as Mahabharata.
Okay. Yeah.
But to provide an abstract background of this war, I mean, it's basically a war between the good and the evil, let's say.
Right. Correctly put. Yeah.
And so of course the God wants to keep the righteousness, which is also called as dharma in Sanskrit,
Yeah.
that's prevailing on the earth.
Yeah.
So he appeared into this context of war
Yeah.
to protect the goods.
Yeah.
And on the side of the good there is King Arjuna,
Yeah.
and on the side of the evil it's his own cousin brother, who is called as Duryodhana.
Okay.
So the war happens between the cousin brothers, so it's between the same family,
Yeah.
and Lord Krishna is on the side of Arjuna,
Yeah.
while Duryodhana is on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay, and Bhagavad Gita is all about the dialogues happening between King Arjuna
And
Lord
Krishna.
Krishna.
Lord
Yeah,
Krishna.
exactly.
Okay.
So this is the background of Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting, buddy. And I was reading about it also regarding the background of the Bhagavad Gita. So I found some interesting interesting stuffs like they are saying that the Bhagavad Gita is just a reconciliation of the Vedas and Upanishad that we had actually. And the moment you go into the Vedas, so Vedas is something like kind of ascribing the external forces in terms of the energies and the wind, they're ascribing it as a god or something. Then they literally understood that instead of ascribing the external forces, we also internalize what is the internal forces that we have to investigate upon.
Yeah.
What is the internal suffering that we have to get out of it? What is the main suffering that we used to carry while taking the bath?
Yeah.
Then they simultaneously talk about in the Vedanta Upanishad, they simultaneously talk about the Atman, the Brahman,
Yeah.
and the stories and the non-dualism and all those things. Then I see, whenever I read the Bhagavad Gita, I see a kind of encapsulation of all those concepts into a very, very conversational form or something.
Yes. Also, it
So would
directly
you like
comes
to-
from the voice of God, so it's it's different from the other scriptures in which it says monologues.
Yes,
Here,
yes,
here
yes,
the
yes.
conversation really happens between the human mind and the mind of the God.
Mind
so
of the
it's,
God.
in this
Exactly.
way, it's quite interesting to me personally.
Okay, that's nice. So before going into this, so I would like to understand what is your perception about Krishna?
My perception about Krishna. Okay.
Yeah.
So, ignoring the context of religion, my personal feeling about Krishna is that he is a form of the infinite, formless God.
That's nice. Yeah.
So he is one of the forms of the infinite superconscious mind.
Okay.
For some people, it's easier to understand, to perceive the God as the
Yeah.
spaceless being, but for most others, we need a form.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Sri Krishna is one of the forms.
Yeah. So that is true actually, because that kind of enlightened being, whenever they perceive the world in a kind of a formless state or something, and then from that formless state, then there's an encapsulation to the human being,
Yeah.
the Krishna itself,
Yeah.
and then there's a conversation. So what I really understood is that he's a timeless being actually.
Yeah.
That you told, I think,
Yeah.
and the truth is also timeless.
That's
So so there is a good correlation, because whenever we attain the truth, because we start investigating our state from the suffering or the point of view of why do you need spirituality, or why do I need this kind of scriptures from that particular point of suffering. The moment we are doing the conversation, that Arjuna is keep on asking question and
Yeah.
getting deeper into it,
Yeah.
then his questions dissolve.
Yeah.
Then he is also attaining the truth, or the real substrate, and the infiniteness, or the consciousness that you told about.
That's right.
And I think that is very good investigation, because this conversation is very, very necessary in spiritual journey or something that I really like.
Absolutely. And since you
So-
said, like you said, since it comes from the timeless being,
Yeah.
even though Bhagavad Gita happened in an ancient war, the principles that were being discussed
That is
there
still relevant in today's date, and that
Exactly.
is still
So
a truth kind
can
of thing.
be easily applied in today's life,
Yeah.
either internal life or the external life. The principles are the same.
Yeah.
That's why the truth is always eternal, they say.
Okay, that is true actually. So anyway, so let us start the conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. So okay, I don't think in the first chapter they have a conversation. So let us start the first chapter. So
Yeah.
what is the okay? You have the. So before starting the first chapter, do you want to chant something that you told, or do you want to have some bit of? If it is okay, then it is okay, or we can directly start that.
We can chant.
Okay.
Just saying Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Okay. Om Shri Paramatma Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatma Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatma Namaha.
Okay.
That's a nice way of introducing the.
It's to just
Scripture
to
to the
remember the
people.
gods before we
Okay.
So before going into the chapter 1, I would like to read out one of the quotes by Mohandas
Okay.
Karamchand
Sure.
Gandhi.
Yeah.
It's by Gandhi,
Okay.
who told about Gita, and the quote is as follows.
Okay.
When doubts haunt me, when
Yeah.
disappointments stare me in the face,
Yeah.
and I see not any one ray of hope on the horizon, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me. And I immediately begin to smile
Yeah.
in the midst of overwhelming sorrow.
Yeah.
Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new beginnings from it every day.
Yeah. That's true.
And it's been said that Bhagavad Gita was one of the influential scriptures
Yeah.
in the life of Mahatma Gandhi.
In the
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So let's move on to the chapter 1, which is about
Arjuna's despair or something.
yeah, it can be seen in different ways, but
Okay.
the title given here in this book that I have is
Okay.
called Observing the Armies on the Battlefield of Kurukshetra.
Okay.
So it's about observing the battlefield,
Okay.
and like Raktim said in chapter 1, Lord Krishna doesn't speak anything. It's all about Arjuna,
Arjuna.
the king, on the
The
good
king.
side.
Yeah.
So Lord
So
Krishna,
here I would like to point it out for the audience is that so Arjuna is a kind of king that he wants to investigate that why does he need to do like the inside the battle actually why does he need to do the battle between his own brother. Okay, as a very vague way of putting it, but okay, something like that. And then the Krishna is giving some advices, not in the chapter 1, but later chapters. So in the chapter 1, Arjuna is trying to understand that what is the despair of it, and why does he need to battle, something like that. So okay, we can start the chapter 1. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So now we are in the context of battlefield. let's
Yeah.
say. And Sri Krishna is the charioteer,
Okay.
in which King Arjuna is also there.
Mm.
And in the beginning, after the onset of the war,
Yeah.
King Arjuna is asking Lord Krishna to move on the middle of the battlefield
Okay.
to see who are on the other side,
Yeah.
who are eagerly waiting for Arjuna to be killed in order to retain the kingdom.
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And Krishna is obeying this request and is taking Arjuna in the middle of the battlefield.
Yeah.
And Arjuna looks every one of his paternal relatives, his gurus,
Yeah.
his cousin brothers, and so on and so forth. And
Then-
after seeing them,
Yeah.
he loses his state of mind. He thinks,
Exactly.
okay, should I really kill all these people or
Yes, we-
getting killed?
Yeah.
And he says these following words
Okay.
to Krishna.
Yeah.
My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in
Yeah.
such a fighting spirit,
Yeah.
I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up.
Okay. So here, like Arjuna, when he entered into the battlefield, and and he's asking Krishna actually that in the battlefield I have to do the battle or fight against my own brother, and it's a quite surprising, like for a human being. Whenever, for example, I have 4 or 5 brothers, now there is a kind of battle between me and my brother. It's something a kind of what to say in the today's society.
Yeah.
There is much more correlation between these notions,
Yeah,
between the
yeah.
battle, between their own reflection maybe.
Yeah, it
The brother
happens
is a
in-
kind of own reflection.
It happens in all levels. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Okay, so you can
And
quote
then-
something more.
And then further he says,
yeah,
my whole body is trembling.
yeah,
My hair is standing on end.
yeah,
My bow is slipping from my hand. And
Yeah.
my skin is burning.
okay,
I'm now unable to stand here any longer.
yeah,
I'm forgetting myself. And my mind is reeling. My mind is wandering. I see only the causes of misfortune, O
Yeah.
Krishna. He says.
Okay.
So, in some sense, if you think when you are feeling anxious,
Exactly.
your body is going through similar kinds of emotions, right?
Yeah, and inside the battlefield actually, whenever you are seeing something, you have to fight against your own brother. So that's a kind of super anxiety actually, I would say, because it's a pretty weird body because this kind of battle. So I think from here we can draw a little bit of correlation between this battle and
Absolutely.
with the societal notions about it.
Yeah.
So I think we can segregate this part into two things. First is the external battles that we used to face with the materialistic world or something.
Mhm.
And the second one is your internal battle
Yeah.
that we used to fight to get out of the suffering.
Yeah.
And let us assume that in a way, and the degree of suffering is there for all the human beings.
That's true.
Could be the degree is very, very less for a spiritually afflicted being, or a kind of natural being, or for some of the other people the suffering is very, very huge. And the suffering comes from this particular whenever you are having some attachment or something. So this attachment factor could be correlated with the relationship between the brother and the Arjuna actually, because who we are much more attached to,
Yeah.
with our own parents, with our own brother.
Yes.
So whenever we are seeing this kind of thing, so I think the attachment here, they are symbolizing that attachment actually. We are much more attached to our own ego, our own fear of losing something or something. We are attached to the much more identity. For example, we have a girlfriend or boyfriend or something, and we are much more attached with their own identity. Okay, that he is mine or she is mine or something.
Yeah.
And
a sort of possessiveness comes into
a kind of possessiveness come into, a kind of attachment, and from those attachment expectations come into. So the similar kind of story I can see in the same Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, that suffering. And from whenever we see that, okay, we can lose the battle or we can lose that attachment, that's a kind of shivering part actually.
Yeah.
That okay, is it possible to retain into the timeless form or something? So that's a kind of investigation, that being into the limited, how to reach the unlimited actually. Being into the limited attachment, can we manifest it into the unlimited kind of attachment, or from that attachment can we attain the liberation? Because we have to get attached while remaining in the material world, because we are ultimately in a body and we are biologically driven, so attachment will come. But is it possible that to attach to something to get liberated? What is your
Yes, I mean.
you tell
Yeah,
something
yeah,
about it,
I understand your question. It's a very tricky question indeed.
Sorry, no, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to draw the connection between this
So,
materialistic world.
so the point is that being in this world, we have to be attached to something for sure. Otherwise,
That's for sure. Yes.
I mean, in some sense, we are all attached. I mean, we are
Exactly.
all connected to one another. If someone is doing good things, it affects the surroundings, not just himself. So
That
we
is
are
very
all
true. Yeah.
we are all already connected to some extent. So I wouldn't personally say that you can get rid of attachments
Exactly.
and reach
You can't actually.
the ultimate goal. But the objects that you are attached to, that has to be questioned.
Yes.
You have to question yourself. Being attached to money, for example,
Yes.
doesn't make any sense. Does it make me live in a state of total joy and peace
Exactly.
or not?
Exactly.
You have to always inquire this way. So
Exactly.
the object of your attachment
Yeah. That
should
has
be,
to be
should be questioned
Yeah.
as frequently as possible.
Yes.
And by doing so, you will know which ones you should give more priority in your life
Yeah.
to be fulfilled, to be in a joyful state.
Yeah. And you draw a very good understanding here actually, because we really don't know that whether, and this could be a highly philosophical, that okay, getting attached to some object in which we'll attain the liberation. For example, getting attached to the Bhagavad Gita, scriptures on the spiritual life.
Yeah.
That is also a kind of pure
Attachment.
attachment.
Yeah.
But is it possible to attain the ultimate state? We don't know actually. But my understanding is that before going into the spiritual life, if someone wants to go, because that discussion I think spark to someone into the other side of the story.
Hopefully.
Yeah. But if someone wants to go, but my understanding is that do not really get into that particular attainment or something. Do not stick into that philosophy. First, you understand your life, where you are right now, and which particular things you're attached to. And whenever you see that, okay, that attachment is not leading me to the spiritual life, not leading me to the uplifting my own consciousness or the purifying my own consciousness, you keep on eliminating things.
Yeah.
If the moment you keep on eliminating those things, that the spirituality will evolve from that elimination. It's a kind of elimination game actually, because we cannot directly attain the truth or something like that. We keep on eliminating the negative or something that you used to say, the falseness.
Yeah.
The moment we eliminate gradually the falseness or the negativity, the truth will automatically emerge. We don't need to go somewhere, because that is already there actually in our own self.
Yeah. In fact,
And the mind's direction is to lead the truth. That is the mind's own natural direction. Because it doesn't get it, it gets attached into those small things and trying to understand what is the truth or something.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very true indeed. Indeed, I personally would like to see both materialistic life or spiritual life to be the same. Okay?
That's very beautifully put actually. Yeah.
Because I mean, there is no difference. In fact, if once we learn to know how to be attached, to what kind of things we can be attached, both materialistic life and spiritual life is the same. Okay,
That's right.
and we avoid a lot of suffering already.
Yeah.
And like you said, by eliminating certain things, the truth, in my opinion, doesn't emerge, but the truth is always there, waiting for us to see the truth. Okay.
Yeah.
So the truth is already there, and we just are able to perceive the truth directly because we removed the barriers.
Yes.
around
We
the
just need
truth.
to remove the barrier to see the truth actually. The truth is
Exactly.
always there. Yeah. That is also true. Yeah.
And for the same reasons,
Yeah.
I think that the materialistic life and the spiritual life, there's no proper distinction.
Exactly,
Once
man.
we have this
Because
kind of
itself,
mentality.
like our own body or our own mind, to some extent, it is a kind of material. Actually, we cannot get rid of. Like, if we want liberation, we cannot cut my own body or something and get liberated.
Exactly.
We have to carry all those attributes of the body. For example, those things. For example, fear, anxiety, depression, frustration. All those things will come. So, to some extent, how much? Why the spirituality will help? Because if we have that particular knowledge of non-dualism or something, Brahman and Atman, that would eventually help us to not get deeper into the core of this sort of anxiety or something. Anxiety will be there, will still be there, even though we attain the truth or something.
Yeah.
But it would be in the surface level.
Yeah.
It won't touch my core actually.
Yeah.
That I really understood while starting my spiritual journey.
Yeah.
It was a kind of messy, but gradually I was getting the order. So what was
so
your journey or something? Yeah, if you can be a little bit, not the very.
Yeah, I think I mostly resonate with what you said. In fact, my original idea about the spirituality is that once I reach such a state of mind, I'll be free from all sort of attachments. I'll be free from anxieties and depression.
But it is not
But it is
entirely.
It's not true because
possible, yeah.
After a while I rely on food. No, I
Exactly.
need to find food to feed my
Right.
body. So I'm always dependent on something as long as I'm in this body.
Yeah.
So, but it's still possible to integrate this knowledge and live the life in a state of free flow.
In a very full-fledged way, maybe.
Exactly.
Like, even though those fear will be there,
Yeah.
anxiety will be there, but that won't touch the core of my being or something.
That's
The
true.
core of my touch will be the Atman or the Brahman or something very far deeper than this kind of things actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to again Bhagavad Gita. So
Yeah.
okay, so explain us about the battlefield more deeper. Like okay, you explained about it. Okay, Arjuna is there and he's shivering while seeing the battle of. He has to do the fight against his own brother.
Mm-hmm.
So what else is there for in the first of the?
Yeah, in the chapter
okay.
1, like I said, seeing his relatives, his cousin brothers, his teachers on the other side of the battlefield, he tells
Yeah.
the god Krishna
Yeah.
that his body is shivering, etc.
Yeah,
And he is not able to fight, he is not able to think clearly
yeah,
because his mind is filled with such anxiety thoughts, basically.
yeah,
And he tells the god that, okay, we being on the righteous side,
yeah.
we can give up on this war
Okay.
and go back. Instead of we killing them and doing more sinful activities to achieve the kingdom,
Oh, that is Arjuna is saying.
Arjuna is saying to
okay,
Krishna.
so we should not do that battle or
Ex-
something. We should go.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they are totally attached to this material wealth, to the kingdom,
Mhm.
and therefore they are here to kill me.
Okay.
But since we are on the side of the truth,
Yeah.
why don't we just give up the kingdom, the material kingdom, to them
Yeah,
and go back instead of me killing my own cousin brothers?
I understand, buddy. So Arjuna actually here he already knows the truth, but if we want to correlate it with the kind of in the materialistic world, somebody if they want to attain the truth, they also don't know that okay he already knows the truth or something. Because in the materialistic world, it could be possible that a person is so much materially glued that he doesn't even have the knowledge of the truth or something.
Yeah.
He finds truth within those short temporary happiness in the materialistic world
Yeah.
or the materialistic pleasure.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the access to the spiritual pleasure or something, and he doesn't even know that if we get into that direction, then it is impossible to come out of that spiritual pleasure or something and again get into the materialism.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would like to ask a question, buddy. So
Sure.
here, to start, like Arjuna said that whether I should face that particular battle or whether I should stick with the truth or do not get into it.
Exactly.
So my question is that in order to attain the truth, is it necessary to get into the materialism a little bit? Does that help? I think that conclusion is very much relevant to that what Arjuna is saying there.
Can you repeat your question? Sorry.
The question is that Arjuna is saying that I don't need to face the battle.
Yeah.
So here I am ascribing the battle as the battle of the materialism.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if we know the spirituality, the materialism is I am battling with the materialism.
Yeah.
So instead of to attain the truth of it,
Yeah.
okay, should we need to investigate the materialism or should we need to get into the materialism first and go deeper into it? Not deeper, a little bit into it, and then attain the truth.
Okay.
My question is like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we are not spiritually aware in the first place,
But
That is- yeah.
I mean, in the chapter 1, we understand Arjuna's compassion, first of all.
yeah, that is
So
also
even
true, right?
if he was sent to exile for 13 years, along with his own brothers and his wife, he still has a lot of compassion for his own enemies.
yeah,
To that extent, he is not willing to fight the battle. Okay,
right.
and probably that's why Shri Krishna is with him, because he is capable of doing the war by himself.
Yeah,
But even then, he is also compassionate to the great level of extent. So,
yeah,
and that's what is bothering him. And in fact, for him, from what I understood from the chapter 1, even if someone is willing to give him the 3 worlds, so in Hinduism and Indian scriptures, there are not just 2 worlds, there are 3 worlds.
3 worlds.
Unlike here, which is earth and heaven,
Okay.
we have 3 worlds. And
Yeah.
Arjuna says to Krishna, even if someone is offering me 3 worlds to kill them, I'm afraid I cannot do it.
Yeah.
So he shows sort of detachment
Yeah.
from his materialistic perspective.
But Krishna is
But
here.
the truth is, since we are in chapter 1,
Yeah.
the truth is Sri Krishna is not accepting this kind of suggestion from Arjuna.
Yeah.
Even if it's grounded in deepest compassion,
Yeah.
because Krishna's perspective, which we will later discuss in the next chapters,
Yeah.
is that while we are attached to the spiritual truth, we should also carry out our activities as a human.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
As a ruler, as a king, his goal is his objective is to keep the righteousness in his kingdom. And giving up on this
Right,
war means giving all your power to the evil forces,
Yeah.
to the opponent side,
Ah.
and Sri
okay,
Krishna
okay,
doesn't support this.
Okay.
So it is important to be spiritual, but Krishna's advice, indirect advice, is to also perform our daily activities.
Daily activities.
So if
yeah.
I'm a PhD scholar, I do have to do some sort of things. And
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I'm in the body, I do have to feed my body
Feed your
with food
body.
and water.
Yes. Yeah, so that's a very interesting conclusion actually. So here, like Arjuna is saying that okay, knowing the truth of the dharma or something. So why should I again fight the battle against
Exactly.
my own enemy or something? But Krishna is saying you have to fight the battle.
Yeah.
Even though you know the truth actually.
Yeah.
So the thing is that my conclusion is that even though we are spiritually much more deeper into it, we should do our activity. We
Yeah.
should enlighten other people. It is not like to restrict our knowledge into our own core or something. We should do the activities of spreading spirituality, or if we see something very very like demoning or something very very like destroying the society or something,
Yeah.
we should fight against it, like Arjuna is doing. So that particular thing, and the Krishna is forcing that to retain the dharma into the timeless form. It is not like to give, like you said, that to give the power to the opponent and the opponent will just get, and then the societal structure or the societal core will be destroyed with respect to it.
Exactly.
So the most
Yeah, you
important
might
thing is
say-
that if you are spiritually enlightened, you have to spread that enlightenment, or you have to spread that knowledge to uplift the societal consciousness altogether, maybe.
Yeah,
And
I think
that activity should be there. Yeah.
I think once you understand something, the next thing that you want to do is to share.
Right.
You
Correct.
understand something and you share. This is how.
But my perception is that we have a lot of Himalayan yogis, right?
Yeah.
They used to go to Himalaya and they used to meditate there, and they never utter a word. So I known some. So what is your perception about
I
those
think-
people and the people who used to spread, for example, Paramahansa Yogananda, like your guru,
Yeah.
and Swami Vivekananda,
Yeah.
and people like that, modern days gurus like Sadhguru and and other people. So what is your perception about it? Like, is it like to entirely get detached from the materialism and sit on a particular place and do the meditation over that Himalaya or something? That is also a very kind of individual growth of spirituality, I would say. And what is your main goal? Like, for example, getting yourself emerge into the materialistic world and leading into the spiritual life, and also uplifting yourself
Yeah.
and uplifting the societal consciousness altogether. So
Yeah,
which
it's-
one is, I think, in your own perception, is good? I know that the second you will choose the second option.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
your
I think, like you said, there can be two kinds of, broadly speaking, two kinds of spiritual seekers. The ones who would like to meditate and they want to be isolated from the society, so they renunciate everything, like their properties, their
Yeah.
own family, etc., and they isolate themselves and they immerse themselves in the super consciousness, okay, which is God, through meditation or whatever practices that they may do. The other group is let's say that who tries to be in the middle path, like
Yeah.
while being here, performing the activities of daily life,
Yeah.
and at the same time allocate some time every day
Yeah.
for the spiritual growth. So just like my mind needs some sort of training
Okay.
to live happily, okay,
Okay.
and my body needs some exercises to live
Yeah.
healthily, and my spirit, my soul also requires some sort of practices
Yeah. Yeah.
in order to grow actually. So it's very important to look into all the three aspects,
Yeah.
and those who are in this path, they are called to me the middle life path, let's say,
Okay.
who is like for example, if you take Buddhism, is highly grounded on the materialist, on the life on the earth. At the same time, it teaches you how to train your mind to be free from suffering, basically.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's called the middle path.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would like to stay in the middle path.
Middle path.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
personal choice. I do not say that it's wrong to isolate yourself and go to Himalayas or wherever you prefer and stay in the meditative state and not utter any single word.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I do not say anything wrong with that, but yeah, my personal choice is on the middle path because I really like the life here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good to be here. At the same time, do some stuff that fulfills my soul, that helps my soul to evolve.
Helps your soul to evolve.
Yeah, I think the ultimate goal of
So-
living is to gain knowledge and wisdom, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Without wisdom, it is impossible to live a very.
So I think this
healthy life
place that we live is a wonderful place to know some sort of stuff. So
Yeah. Okay, buddy. So I think we have drawn the conclusion from the first chapter or
Yeah,
something,
so
or is there
that's-
anything remaining?
no,
Would you
actually,
like
yeah,
to-
the chapter 1 is about Arjuna's compassion for his enemies,
Exactly.
and he also describes the anxious states of mind. So when your mind is going through some sort of anxieties,
Yeah.
what happens to your body, and that was
Correct.
clearly explained.
And
in this.
here also, like I'll repeat it again. Actually, the brother, and this is a kind of, you can take it also as a symbolism instead of also taking it as a story or the real phenomena. You can also take it as a symbolism. Is that the brother is something like your nearest and dearest one. So who is your nearest and dearest one? Your own fear, your own anxiety. They are much more attached to you. So you have to fight those. You have to fight your fear. You have to fight your anxiety to get out of those things and gradually lead your mind to a very purified state of your consciousness or something. But and that's a constant journey. I won't say that there is a particular point or something where you will reach it, but I think it's a kind of constant journey because all those external forces will always come towards you. For example, the materialistic pleasure will come towards you, the materialistic expectation will come towards you. You will also have the fear whenever you are evolving, whenever you are seeing your colleague or something. But if you have that spiritual knowledge, if you have that wisdom, then those parameters will gradually get dissolved into your mind, and you will understand the life in a far deeper way than the competition or competitive manner, I would say, in the far ground reality. Actually,
Yeah.
you will understand your mind or the, because what I have really seen in the for example, in the Upanishad, I will quote one thing. They always say that the mind always operates on the dualistic nature, because whenever we see that, we always segregate between the bad and the good.
Yeah.
Here also, like Arjuna is saying that we have to fight with the father, with our own brother.
Yeah.
Is it a kind of bad thing or good thing? I don't know. But Krishna is saying investigate it, go deeper into it, investigate it, and then fight against it actually. So instead of labeling something good, bad, or this dualism, I think the investigation part is much more necessary than blindly following those scripture actually.
Absolutely.
Most of the thing what I've seen that whenever people go into the devotion or something, sometimes I face that issue that they don't investigate. Whatever they have been taught, they just blindly follow it, and
That happens, yeah.
then they just go into the narrowness of it. They don't get a 360-degree point of view of spirituality.
Yeah.
They go into the tunnel vision. They see only one particular direction, for example the Christianity or the Islam or something. We don't get the higher perspective that if we go core of the Christianity, if we go core of the Islam or something, if we go core of the Hinduism, the core is always same. The periphery could be different. The verses could be different, but what inside the verses, that remains same, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you. I think thank you, Velu, for joining
Thanks
with us.
so
And
much,
that's
Sai.
a real upliftment of the spiritual knowledge, because I personally feel very, very lucky that I met Velu and I found him very, very spiritual. And
Thank you, man.
this kind of discussion is something really uplift and our consciousness. And you also talk about the isolation or something. Would you like to elaborate for your audience that what isolation did you feel, or how did you get overcome the spiritual isolation that you
Okay.
just little bit, and how the spirituality helped you? If you don't want to share, it's okay, but if
Well, I just do not recall which kind of isolation. Like.
that you told that in the PhD journey you didn't meet or
Okay.
then you told
Yeah, I
the
can-
discussion
now I
happened
understand.
between you and me, and then I think that was the point where we get deeper into the spirituality or something like that.
Okay.
From that point.
Now I understand. Okay.
So that's why, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like for most of us,
Yeah.
when we begin to question all these things,
Yeah.
there's a sort of feeling of voidness comes. Okay, I mean,
Like whenever eliminating those
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
you
like-
find a vacuum that okay.
exactly. So
How
you,
to-
you wonder, where do you belong to? Do you
Yeah.
belong to this place, or is there any physical place called heaven? And what's the point of having this life then?
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. But yeah, I eventually, I mean, I really took refuge in the teachings of Buddha
Yeah.
primarily, and it really helped me to ground in this life, to understand the complexities of the human mind,
Okay.
and that really helped me to move forward. And now I'm in this state of mind, but I'm not sure if I
And
this is an ongoing journey, so there are always challenges.
yeah. That is true. Also, that is true. And okay, so I think
Yes.
is it okay? I would ask you another question. Maybe that question is not relevant to only spirituality, but it is also. So spirituality, it is, for example, it is like the self-investigation of your mind. Okay.
Yeah.
To make it much more purified to consciousness or something like that. And also there are psychologists or something, and there are people who are doing the research on the brain activity that you also sometimes do. That's why the question came into my mind.
Okay.
So do you find any kind of connection between the activity whenever you see into the objective point of view of the brain, and whenever you see in the spiritual point of view? So what is
The scientific.
the scientific exploration of the mind and the spiritual exploration of the mind? Do you find any kind of connection, or do you have any perception about it? So that is the last question, I think, in our podcast, because
yeah,
so,
I'm not directly working on this higher states of consciousness, but there has been especially after 2000,
yeah.
the year 2000, there has been a significant amount of research,
Okay.
and they revealed that that practicing mindfulness meditation, for example, really helps the dynamics of your mind
Dynamics of the mind. Yeah, that's true.
to cope up with your anxiety or depression. And it's scientifically proven that meditation really helps to live a life full of joy.
Full of joy.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy. It's,
Thanks so much.
Yeah, it's a nice discussion, and I would really say that I am very thankful that I get a friend like you, a spiritual friend with whom I can discuss about those core deeper things of spirituality or something. Most often whenever I used to meet people, I don't get this kind of deeper connection actually. And that's a kind of void for me, you know.
Okay.
Why I don't get that kind of deeper connection with other people. and why
Yeah.
the people are not
It's always
spiritual,
there.
because the spirituality is something what to
It's there. It's still there. I'm really grateful that we met each other and we exchanged good
Yeah.
ideas, and to be able to do this podcast on Bhagavad Gita, because I had this intention
yeah
over a year ago,
yeah
but I never met anyone with who I could do this sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
So
Finally
I think,
the Lord Krishna and
I think that the universal elements brought us
me
together.
and you to get into the
So
spiritual
I'm really
direction.
happy to be here, and
Yeah.
I hope also for the listeners it's
Yeah, and
brings
let
some-
me okay, thank you Veru again.
Yeah,
So
thanks.
let me know that you like the podcast or not, and what kind of element, spiritual element or spiritual discussion do you need in the later videos of ours. And maybe we'll also make a kind of series of the chapter by chapter on the Bhagavad Gita, and we can go much deeper into it. So let me know into the comment section that what did you like in this particular podcast, and what do you really need in the future for our for the discussions of regarding the spirituality or something, or the between the spirituality or the research on the brain or something. What kind of things do you need? And thank you. So see you all. Bye bye.
Thank you everyone.
Yeah.